Sun time.
Yo, what's up YouTube? Charizma here, and right, so the goal of this video is for me to determine which is the strongest main protagonist of the big three. For those of you that don't know or have been misinformed over the years, that's Naruto, One Piece, and Bleach. Now, before we get started, let's go over some ground rules, shall we? First of all, yes, both Naruto and Luffy can see Ichigo. I already know there's people out there thinking this way. I mean, not only do things like Senjutsu and observation haki allow for them to sense spiritual presences that would normally be invisible to the naked eye, but I mean, that's just not a fun battle now, is it? Like, come on, you got one guy fighting against two blind guys, basically. It's just not, no. Also, the Luffy situation. Any One Piece fans watching this video, I will be bringing up major spoilers from the series. At the time of recording, we are at chapter 1014, so yeah, go catch up if you know what's good for you. Obviously, One Piece isn't over yet, so there is still no idea of how powerful a Pirate King Luffy might end up being, but by this point in the series, I'd say Luffy already has a few feats that puts him on a tier with the most powerful characters in the series. Sorta. We'll get to it. Now, in terms of which versions of these characters I'll be using here, keeping in theme with the title of this video, it'll be their strongest known forms to date. That's Naruto from the war after meeting Hagoromo, not Hokage Naruto because this is the big three. Boruto is not a part of the big three. Luffy after figuring out how to use advanced armament and advanced conqueror's haki, and Ichigo after his training with Namaya. Alright, yeah, I think that's it. It's time to create some new digital enemies, I bet, because people take this shit seriously, son. Standard battle assumptions apply here, so for those of you, that don't really know what that means, everyone will be in some sort of neutral environment. I don't know, let's just say they're in this random wasteland away from any water, with reishi and chakra existing naturally in the world, I guess, but not to an extent that it would give Ichigo and Naruto any unfair advantages over Luffy, but enough to allow them to function normally, Just the three of them, triple threat match to save their entire verse. Who would win? So, this section of the video should act as a bit of a tale of the tape, right? Before the fight, I'll just take a few minutes to briefly analyze the strength, speed, and durability of each of these characters, as this is the battle in which all of that actually makes a difference. Again, briefly, which means we don't have time for all of that math and deep metascaling, I didn't go to school for physics anyway. We're starting with Naruto because I feel like he has the most to analyze here. And yes, I'm jumping straight into Six Path Sage mode Naruto because this is Naruto's strongest form and most likely he'll be using it for the entire battle. When it comes to strength, everyone immediately goes for the last feat, right? Where Naruto not only matches Tenseigan Chakra Mode Toneri in battle, but also, without even using any Kurama avatars, just raw Naruto forearm power, essentially Broly's his way through Toneri's ultimate attack Golden Wheel, which can cut the hollowed out moon in half. But that's low-hanging fruit. Plus, this Naruto isn't even on the same level as Naruto with his truth-seeking orbs, which is the one that we're talking about here. Now, to end any disputes right up front, yes, Naruto is strong enough to destroy a planet to me. Why? Because he managed to damage Kaguya in battle. Yes, it's really that simple. Basically, the Ten Tails in its final form, a being with enough chakra to create truth-seeking orbs the size of one of her quote-unquote worlds. Now, it's tough to confirm if any of Kaguya's quote-unquote worlds, that's why I'm using quotes here, are like universe size, like some people out there tend to believe. But charisma, the sun and the stars and the Naruto verse isn't exactly based on real-world cosmology, right? Because of the whole hollow moon thing. So I'm going to be on the safe side here and just say that Kaguya's dimensions are built like a group of planets or planetoid spaces existing in an empty realm that may include some type of solar system, but we don't know. That's getting into headcanon stuff, right? Regardless, Kaguya can destroy any of these with a simple temper tantrum, which makes her planetary at the very least. If it helps, think of her realm or hold on, what's the name of the jutsu? Ameno Minaka? Sure. Think of that like a model of the 12 universes from Dragon Ball Super, right? But there's only 5 planets in the circle instead of 12 universes surrounding one main planet, Kaguya's core dimension, the green sky world that she and Zetsu were eventually sealed in. Throughout the story and data books, even though I don't like using data books, there have been multiple implications that the Ten Tails or even Kurama was powerful enough to destroy the entire planet over time. The Ten Tails even being compared to a planet's worth of shinobi in terms of chakra. And Kaguya basically possesses the same chakra, right? Only much more concentrated and channeled into various unique abilities. Though he couldn't defeat her by himself, Naruto was the only one besides Sasuke and Double Sharingan Kakashi to be able to damage her in the slightest. And his performances against people like Madara and Sasuke, both who scaled to Kaguya, were even better. All of whom I'd comfortably say are stronger than the Ten Tails and Jubito by that point, 2 planet level threats already. So yeah, I think it's safe to say Naruto's planetary. When it comes to speed, we'll be focusing on reflexes and just general combat speed, you know? You already know what I'm about to say, right? Madara has Sage Art Storm Release Light Fang, which hasn't been disproven that it contains all the basic properties of light. Naruto nearly dodges it out of pure reflex. Naruto has about light speed reflexes, right? You follow me? Cool. Potentially higher, but we'll leave it there for now. I'd say his combat speed is somewhat slower than this, but is still generally relative to the speed of light. Not only because Naruto was mid-combat while dodging that attack, but because his speed from KCM onwards is directly comparable, if not superior, to KCM Minato, who's obviously faster than base Minato, who is faster than Kakashi as a kid, who managed to time actual lightning. So I'd say at the very, very, very least, lightning speed, but come on. In terms of stamina and durability, I mean, all 3 characters here are about even in the sense that they each have ridiculous reserves of energy, even after suffering great trauma. Naruto in this instance fought for around 3 days straight during the war, barely showing exhaustion even after having his tailed beast distracted, and we all know what happens when that happens. All he did was take a little nap, and then after waking up, he went on to challenge 2 gods of the shinobi world, and then battled Sasuke to the absolute limit. His durability is pretty much directly related to his chakra, because even before acquiring the rest of the Bijou, the chakra from the Nine Tails alone could heal Naruto's injuries like an ointment of sorts, and also acted as a form of poisonous protective armor. Oh yeah, and I'm purposefully not discussing Naruto's jutsu here because they will definitely come into play during the breakdown of the battle. So we'll leave it there for now. You know, I'm gonna keep it real. I honestly feel like Luffy doesn't have much of a chance in this battle, but I also feel like people see One Piece as a series with phenomenal storytelling told by a bunch of fodder. I don't think Luffy can destroy a planet or anything, or even an entire island by himself for that matter. Let's take Dressrosa for example. Even now, post Udon Luffy, I don't think can destroy all of Dressrosa with an attack by himself in the same way that Naruto could with, say, 1 or 2 Bijou Dama. To me, Luffy right now is still about mountain level, you know, and a huge reason for that comes from Gear 4th. He's definitely towards the top of that tier, don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, he still hasn't completely reached the levels of raw power of a Kaido, Big Mom, or Whitebeard, who I don't doubt could lay waste to all of Dressrosa by themselves. Especially Big Mom, who causes a national emergency in Totland every time she's hungry. And Whitebeard, who had the strongest devil fruit in the series before obviously Blackbeard the booty bandit came around and stole that shit. Next is speed, which is a little more complicated because of One Piece's minor inconsistencies. Shock and horror. But again, erring on the side of caution here, I'll just say that Luffy isn't completely faster than Light, at least not by his rooftop battle with Kaido. Reflex speed, maybe. It's arguable because he did dodge a Pacifista's laser during the return to Sabaody, those attacks being replicas, of course, of the Admiral Kizaru, whose devil fruit means that he's literally made of light. Now, it's very arguable to say whether or not Luffy now could defeat an Admiral one-on-one, especially because of his performance against Kaido. But I mean, because he still wasn't able to dodge one of Kaido's attacks, not even like, was it a special attack? I don't know. It doesn't matter. You know, he was forced to block it. So I'd say that it's a stretch to say that he's as fast as someone like Kizaru, who it seems like speed is his main thing. Combat speed, though, is a bit more straightforward. Luffy's greatest speed feat still to this day is outpacing Katakuri with Gear Force Snake Man, which pits him near that hypersonic to relativistic light speed range. Again, Katakuri versus Kizaru, it's tough to determine a winner there, but even when using observation haki, the one that he developed in that fight, he struggled a lot to keep up, and that's putting it mildly. That just leaves us with durability now, which obviously is Luffy's bread and butter. He's made of rubber, right? But yeah, this is Luffy we're talking about here. After Sabaody, this is the same guy that fought his way through the toughest prison in the world, nearly died from poison in 20 hours of surgery, and then was still raring to go at Marineford, albeit a little bit high off his meds. In Totland, Luffy fought against Cracker for 11 hours and Katakuri for around 13 hours, two of Big Mom's strongest family members, and managed to wear them both down through just sheer determination, despite having great disadvantages. And a little bit of assistance, that helped as well. Shout out to Nami. Hey Nami. Even now on Onigashima, Luffy is showing Kaido that he can get knocked out repeatedly and then just hop back up in a few minutes, just as energetic as before, more powerful than before, and probably with a counterattack. I guess when it comes to Luffy's place in this battle, it's about how Naruto and Ichigo stack up against the most powerful characters in One Piece. And yeah, it's not looking good for Luffy. Especially because, no spoilers, he's still very much struggling against Kaido and Big Mom, who are arguably a level under Shanks, Whitebeard, and Roger, who are all under someone like Zebek. The dark horse of the battle, if you ask me. I mean, Ichigo isn't the flashiest or most innovative fighter in the world, but Zangetsu gets the job done. What do you want me to say? Scaling Bleach is the most difficult out of all of these because there are more implications in portrayals than there are direct feats and statements, but all I know is Ichigo is criminally underrated on Versus Wiki. But fuck Versus Wiki. Now, when it comes to strength, I would also pit Ichigo at that planetary level, though a lot of people don't like to admit it because of the ambiguity of Ichigo's true Bankai, you know? And I've come to this conclusion, this might be a bit contentious, by scaling Ichigo directly off of Yhwach. True Shikai Ichigo was fully capable of defeating Yhwach with his guard down. You can't tell me otherwise. This is the same Yhwach that's entire evil scheme was based on destroying not one, but 3 worlds, all replicating Earth to a certain extent. At the very least being 3 flat, massive continents that just so happens to have a sun and a moon, I'm just saying. I mean, the human world is based on actual Japan, so there is an argument that they are indeed replicas of Earth, but separate debate, you know? This is the same Yhwach who was merely impersonated by one of his faithful Sternritter and still forced head captain of the Gotei 13, Genryusai Shigekuni Yamamoto, to use his Bankai to finish him off. The same Bankai that could destroy the entire Soul Society if unleashed for too long, which the actual Yhwach could control no problem. This is the same Yhwach that bequeathed a bunch of hacks-ass abilities to each of his loyal soldiers, in turn making a handful of the Sternritter nigh immortal warriors. Let's keep it 100 here. If it wasn't for the Almighty, an ability that literally allows Yhwach to manipulate timelines, and all the regenerative capabilities of Sternritter like Gerard, Pernita, and Lie Baro, Ichigo would have definitely defeated Yhwach with just his Shikai in his new merged hollow form. Go reread the fight if you disagree with me. I mean, Yhwach even remarks at Ichigo fighting with the same type of strength that he used to defeat evolved Hokyoku Aizen, who himself deemed his strength superior to any Shinigami in history, including Yamamoto. People love to claim Dangai Ichigo is the strongest Ichigo, but Yhwach here basically just implied that a Getsuga Tensho from Ichigo's true Shikai is somewhat relative to an attack like Mugetsu, which was Dangai Ichigo's ultimate attack. An attack leagues above any Sero from Ukiura or Vasto Lorde Ichigo, might I add. And speaking of which, even Vasto Lorde Ichigo was implied to be a planet-level threat. I mean, although it was just in a movie, I think that that's enough to at least draw a comparison between Vasto Lorde Ichigo and any of the tailed beasts, regardless of if you think they are planetary or not as well. And yeah, that's just in his base. Bankai in his merged hollow form only multiplies that strength even more, you know? I'll put it this way. Ichigo's merged hollow form at the end of the series is basically like Dangai Ichigo with a hollow mask. So you can't tell me by the 1,000-Year Blood War Ichigo couldn't destroy a planet with his most powerful Getsuga Tensho. It's just absurd. Now, in terms of speed, with Bleach, it gets very tricky. From the beginning of the series, even lieutenants like Rangiku can dodge entire beams of light used to transport comrades. That's too much of a reach for you? Well, how about this? Lil Toto, one of the Stern Ritters, right? Just follow me, could dodge the Osvalen, which is implied to be a superior version of the Negacion, the attack that I just previously mentioned that Rangiku could dodge, and Ichigo blitzed her casually, super casually, like on some Goku Nappa shit, right? That still doesn't prove that Ichigo's light speed for you? Well, how about this? Ichigo's Bankai terrifies Yuhaba, who has all the power and speed of Stern Ritter X Lie Baro, who at his full power is essentially a bird made of light. So, yeah. In terms of reflexes and maybe combat speed, Ichigo is faster than light, has to be. Or at least he's faster than Ryatsu mimicking light if you want to be super fucking anal about it. And his Bankai is even faster than that, 5 to 10 times in fact. A lot of people tend to bring up the duration of time that it took Ichigo to travel through Hueco Mundo or from the Soul Palace, but to me this is all irrelevant because travel speed is totally separate from combat speed. The only even remotely close to concrete evidence we have to determine Ichigo's actual combat speed is from a data book that claims that he was moving like lightning in his battle with Byakuya. But this is likely hyperbole. This is why I don't like using data books. But it is still evidence, if you will. Shunpo honestly is Ichigo's best bet when it comes to speed. It's hard to say how fast Ichigo is, but Ichigo is certainly one of the fastest in his verse, able to keep up with other Shunpo experts like Yoruichi and Byakuya. Now, when it comes to durability and endurance, Zangetsu is Ichigo's main line of defense here, and that sword will not break unless the opponent has power that far exceeds Ichigo's, which I don't think applies in this battle if I'm being honest. Even if there may be a difference in power, it's not by much. Basically, Ichigo's durability is relative to his strength, almost like how chakra works with Naruto. Unlike Naruto and Luffy though, Ichigo doesn't have any feats outside of training where he fights at his max for extended periods of time. But I mean, he is a shonen protagonist and shonen protagonists don't give up. I mean, if I wanted to, I could say that Ichigo's willpower alone allowed him to overwrite an already overwritten future as a defense against the Almighty, but we'll just leave that there for now. No need for wanking. Okay, so before I get started, I just want to apologize because, look, I didn't go to school for animation either, so I can't accurately depict how a battle like this would go in my head as I see it. I can just kind of explain who I think wins real quick. Cool? Bet. But first, let's take a look at what you all thought in the poll I put up about a month ago. And the strongest of the big three is... You know what? I'm actually not mad at it. Luffy got shat on so hard, but it's understandable, I guess. A lot of people probably didn't want to vote for him just because his story isn't over yet, but still. Poor Luffy. But yeah, you guys all picked Naruto, and aggressively too, so interesting. As for me though, it's tough, right? I mean, it kind of comes down to the age-old debate of who I think would win between War Arc Naruto and War Arc Ichigo. Sorry, Luffy, but you just ain't there yet, my friend. Now, without stepping on anyone's toes here, eyebrow raise, this is my breakdown of how I think things will go. Basically, it's a situation of Naruto has a much more versatile moveset, but the Getsuga Tensho is just the perfect offense and defense. They are both renowned for having inconceivable amounts of chakra / Ryatsu, within them, so stamina definitely won't be a factor here. I think this honestly comes down to whether or not Ichigo can hit the actual Naruto and not a shadow clone, and if that's strong enough to overwhelm any of Naruto's varied types of jutsu. And I think the answer to this lies within a comparison of sorts of both of the gods that they each had to defeat. Now, I agree that Kaguya is superior to Yhwach when talking about things like destructive capacity, even with the Soul King absorbed. This is because we know that Kaguya can create entirely new time spaces, worlds, whatever you want to call it, right? Similar to Yhwach, but not really. Now again, the size of these quote-unquote worlds that we're talking about is a completely separate topic, but to put it simply, Kaguya just displays much more casual control of these quote-unquote worlds, you know? She switches between her dimensions in the blink of an eye and can create and destroy worlds whenever she feels like it. You know, even though it takes plenty of chakra, but Kaguya as an entity is built for it. Meanwhile, Yhwach merely manipulates about half of these quote-unquote worlds compared to someone like Kaguya, seeking to just merge them into one and creating a new time space, if you will. And he had to essentially perfect sell his way to that point. That being said, neither Naruto nor Ichigo could defeat these individuals without loads of help and plot-induced convenience. The thing is, for Naruto though, all of those jutsu that he had only barely scratched the surface when it came to decisively defeating Kaguya. In fact, it only annoyed her. The furthest extent being when Naruto managed to separate Zetsu from Kaguya by severing her arm and also slightly scuffing her with his Super Tailed Beast Rasen Shuriken, which led to the disruption of her chakra flow. Ichigo, however, legitimately threatened Yhwach, even after absorbing every ability in Bleach history. Literally. I mean, let's not forget that Yhwach had to spam the Almighty in order to avoid taking one attack from Ichigo's Bankai. Ichigo's attack potency is ridiculous for this, and I say this because his Bankai intimidating and eventually slicing through Yhwach means that pits Ichigo above a lot of broken-ass Bleach characters. People with the mastery and full utilization of various plot-breaking concepts, like, for example, the power of friendship, essentially Fairy Tail's entire power system, ever-evolving adaptability and improvement, and literally manifesting anything that comes to your imagination to help you win. Just to name a few of the Stern Ritter, you know? And then the entire Zero Division as well, which some of could give a few top tier characters in Naruto a rough day. I'm looking at you, Ichibe. However, for as broken as Ichigo is by the end of the series, Naruto does have plenty of hacks himself. Like, oh, I don't know, maybe his main jutsu, the Shadow Clone Jutsu, which allows him to create up to thousands of pretty much exact replicas of himself, and a lot of his Super Tailed Beast Rasen Shuriken. Even a basic Rasen Shuriken can be a one-shot against an unguarded Ichigo. But I'm pretty sure Ichigo's Reiatsu would automatically defend against molecular level attacks, almost like armament hockey in a sense, but that's tough to say. Let's say Naruto throws out the three-headed Ashura Path Rasengan shit. Well, I don't see how Ichigo couldn't escape the blast radius quickly enough, or dare I say cancel it out with a Getsuga Tensho from his Bankai? Maybe? And see, like, this is where I run into a lot of problems with Bleach, right? True Bankai Ichigo could be more powerful than Six Path Sage Mode Naruto in any of his myriad of jutsu. We just don't see it. Ichigo could have better base stats than Naruto. There's just a lot of hoops you have to jump through in order to reach such a conclusion. I think Naruto's biggest advantage over Ichigo here has nothing to do with the actual characters, but rather the mangaka, and that Kishimoto just provides us with many more explicit abilities, feats, and statements that help us conceptualize Naruto's level of power than Kubo does for Ichigo. With Ichigo, there's a lot of inferring and backscaling, whereas with Naruto, we literally see him tanking an attack that can cut through a moon, just as an example. At one point during my many hours and hours of research in an attempt to create the most all-encompassing, least contentious video possible, though that's impossible, I managed to stumble across a very interesting comment under King of Lightning's reaction video to the Ichigo vs Naruto death battle from a few years ago. It's a bit long, so I won't read the entire thing, but in response to a different comment, Kuma's Domain states, and as for Dangai Ichigo, we know what it can do, and it's the strongest form we can use in a death battle for Ichigo. So when most people say Ichigo's most powerful state was Dangai, they probably mean that it's the strongest state / form / transformation that we can use in a death battle for Ichigo. My point here is that it's honestly unfair to include Ichigo's true Bankai in this battle, you know, because we just have nothing to go off of besides Yhwach's ducking of it. with that being said though, if Ichigo hits Naruto successfully with a Getsuga Tensho or a Grand Ray Zero Getsuga Tensho, of course it's looking bad for Naruto. That's a lot of damage.
That's a lot of damage!
But that's if Ichigo manages to hit the actual Naruto. Ichigo can spam as many Getsuga Tensho as he wants to, but Naruto could just exhaust his Reiatsu because, you know, most of Ichigo's abilities come with a time limit, and while dodging and using Shadow Clone decoys, he can use that time to come up with some sort of plan to hit Ichigo with something like the Magnet Release Rasen Shuriken, which would of course seal Ichigo. Now Ichigo could use Blut Vein potentially as some sort of defense mechanism, but he hasn't shown any sort of mastery over the ability, so I'd say as a last-ditch effort at best, but only enough to defend one attack. You know, it doesn't really help him much. Unfortunately, Ichigo's max in this battle has to be his merged hollow form, which means he's very fast and very strong, But after his showings against double Rinnegan, Jubi Madara, Kaguya, and Toneri, Naruto can match that level of power. His pool of techniques also grant him multiple win conditions, and Sasuke is technically a swordsman, so Ichigo doesn't even get any advantages from the difference in fighting styles. Oh, if only the end of Bleach wasn't so rushed, you know? Ichigo's Bankai might be absolutely broken, but again, we just don't see it. Naruto wins. Of the big three, in my opinion, he's the strongest. He mops the floor with Luffy, disrespectfully. Oh, poor Luffy. And Ichigo just gets handicapped from lack of solid supportive evidence. It is what it is. Alright, the main part of the video is done. If that was the main event, then think of this like a post-show, you know, or like the hidden scene in a movie after the credits are over. As a little side activity, I decided to look at Naruto versus Luffy versus Ichigo in a bit of a different way, this time with equal stats. If you don't know what I mean by that, I mean a battle in which the three of them all have the same strength, speed, and durability. All characters start out in base, and transformations do not make a difference besides allowing the character to use certain abilities that aren't accessible to them in base. Case in point, Luffy or Naruto's ability to fly. Though it probably doesn't make a difference, each character will also be composite versions of themselves. This means that Naruto has access to any of his abilities prior to the Boruto series. No Hokage Naruto, again. Luffy can use all of his shit throughout the series, though all of his relevant techniques are from post-time skip anyway. And Ichigo can use Mugetsu, for example, though only once, and of course he can't continue battling afterwards. He would have no Zanpakuto. As for the winner of this battle, it really comes down to things like skill and whatever hacks the characters possess. So let's go over win conditions. Naruto, I believe, only has the sealing jutsu with the help of Shukaku that he can rely on here, because the only other thing I can think of that would help him in a situation like this is Genjutsu, which Naruto isn't proficient in at all. Luffy, of course, has Haki. Conqueror's Haki won't do him much good here because, I mean, equal stats or not, both Naruto and Ichigo have pretty strong spirits, which means it's very unlikely that they'll pass out. But Armament Haki and Observation Haki give him an edge for sure. And even Advanced Conqueror's Haki has its advantages here and there. We just haven't seen enough of it yet, so we'll just put that to the side for now. Ichigo, however, has nothing. Literally, the only attacks he has are all variations of the Getsuga Tensho. You name it. Whenever he defeated Kenpachi, Grimmjow, Ukiura, Aizen, Yuhoba, it's always boiled down to raw strength, overpowering your opponent, you know? There are no unique properties that any of Ichigo's attacks have, at least to my knowledge. Advanced Armament Haki can destroy things from the inside out, and the Rasen Shuriken attacks the cells within the body, as I mentioned before. If Ichigo was at least somewhat familiar with Kido, I could maybe say that he could seal Luffy or Naruto and just call it a day, but he hasn't even used one Kido spell in the entire series. Like, Kido to Ichigo is like Genjutsu to Naruto. It's like it doesn't even exist. I honestly want to say it comes down to whether or not Naruto can get around Luffy's Future Sight. I wouldn't dare say Future Sight is on a level of something like Ultra Instinct from Dragon Ball, but it does still involve some level of precognition. Thanks to the Sharingan though, Naruto is no stranger to opponents that can predict his moves. And Luffy is still growing with his techniques too. His Observation Haki does indeed have its limits. Luffy's great at learning and adapting to the way a person fights, but that doesn't mean that he's constantly aware of all of his surroundings. Like, case in point, when Flampe actually managed to hit Luffy with one of her blow darts in the middle of his battle against Katakuri. I should also mention though that to Luffy's credit, he did dodge her second attempt, meaning that he only potentially needs to see an attack once in order to figure it out, especially post Whole Cake Island, as we've seen him develop his advanced Conqueror's Haki after being hit by Kaido and Big Mom's attacks. Somehow, Naruto has to hit Luffy with the Magnet Release Rasen Shuriken, his almighty key to victory, because not even the regular Rasen Shuriken will work, not against Armament Haki. And I'm thinking once again that his shadow clones are Naruto's best bet. Not necessarily to overwhelm Luffy, because I mean Luffy on plenty of occasions has fought against hundreds to thousands of enemies by himself for hours, but to use his shadow clones to distract him. Shinobi are very tactical fighters typically, way more tactical than someone like Luffy is. And although Naruto is at his best when collaborating with the minds of someone like Kakashi, Sasuke, or Shikamaru, Naruto himself, as unorthodox as some of his methods may be, can still be pretty tactful, even as just a kid. Just look at how he used his shadow clones ingeniously to defeat people like Neji and Pain. It is not out of the realm of possibility at all for Naruto to come up with some sort of harebrained scheme that gets one of his shadow clones to restrain Luffy long enough for Naruto to hit him with his Magnet Release Rasen Shuriken. It definitely won't be easy for him, I'm not saying that, especially because Luffy has also shown on occasion that he can be pretty crafty in his battles as well, like against Crocodile, Eneru, and Cracker. But Luffy has also shown, I'd say far more frequently, that sometimes he'll just take an opponent's strongest attack head on in an act of courage or confidence or something, which often leads to him always losing first, but then overcoming his obstacles in the rematch. However, there are no room for rematches here. All Naruto has to do here is stalemate any of Luffy's Gear 4th transformations with shadow clones and Kurama avatars long enough for Luffy to exhaust his Haki, because there is a time limit for Luffy's Gear 4th transformation still, so far in the manga. From there, Naruto can create some new ridiculous combo technique, Uzumaki Ultimate Barrage or something, catch Luffy slipping, and seal him. I think this is just one of those rare situations when Naruto could be considered the out-and-out smarter fighter, you know? Oh, and the same thing, everything that I just said, it applies to Ichigo too. I low-key forgot you were there, Ichigo. If it makes the One Piece fans feel any better, for as great as Naruto's stamina is, he still won't win a war of attrition against Luffy. Naruto would have to completely obliterate or seal Luffy to stop him from getting back up and just continuously fighting. I guess you could argue that Luffy's observation Haki would allow him to adapt quickly enough to Naruto's fighting style before he runs out of Haki, using Snake Man or something, but as we've seen in the Katakuri fight, Luffy only barely managed to catch up to Katakuri's pace in that amount of time, and even then Katakuri more so forfeited the match than he was beaten into submission, you know? Man, Naruto wins this battle as well. Ichigo just has no hacks, Luffy can just be far too reckless at times, and Shinobi are, quite frankly, more disciplined warriors than pirates at the end of the day. Damn, Naruto, why you so OP? Fahrenheit is going up, TNT we blowing up. Shit has really got me thinking. If I wanna make it out my 20s, then I should probably sober up. Charisma. Need to sober up.